All right, welcome everybody. My name's John Halderson. I am the long-suffering chairperson of DEEP. I've been part of DEEP now for almost 10 years, 10, 11 years, and I've been the co-chair for about 8 of those years. So thank you for those of you who have come in person, and thank you for those of you who are online. We were hoping to have a distributor or two, but we couldn't tie anybody down to come and show some of their products. So what we will do later on, after we do the presentation, we'll do a bit of just looking around at some of the various grab-and-go kits. Some of them are kits that you can buy. Things like what Chris has is what he's put together. And there's some other options that I brought on some of the food that's on the market these days. And one of them that is really good is that they have some of the freeze-dried products have a 25-year shelf life, which makes them really easy, so you don't have to remember to switch them out every year and end up throwing out a whole bunch of cans. So there's lots of new products out there that are coming out. So what we're going to discuss a bit, first of all, is we are going to talk a bit on the grab-and-go kits, and then a little brief introduction to Map Your Neighborhood for those of you don't have much of an idea about it. It's been one of the mainstays of DEEP from when we started. And the idea is the base of preparing your neighborhood so you can all get through at some kind of after a disaster, working together after the disaster and coming through it a lot quicker because you are prepared, your neighbors are prepared, and you know what's going on in your neighborhood. And then the idea is that once you are prepared at home, you can come help us at the Disaster Support Hub because we're going to need all the help we can get. So that's part of what we're up to tonight. Most of the information is either coming from the Map Your Neighborhood booklet, and then a lot of the other stuff is coming from the various Prepared BC guides, some of which are on the back, help yourself. There's a 72-hour preparedness guide that's come from an organization down in the States. It's a couple who have their own website and a bunch of publications they've done on emergency preparedness, all different levels that they've done, all different ideas from how to run an emergency preparedness meeting to get your neighbors involved to how to keep your kids safe. So they have all kinds of topics. Okay. So household emergency plan is the basic cornerstone of everything that you sort of need to do. And what we're going to talk about is really there's two parts. There's your communication plan that you're preparing for you and your family, and then the preparedness that you need to do at home. All right? Every household should have an emergency plan, right? A home emergency plan is your playbook on how you're going to react after the disaster happens. All right? Okay. When you're making your communication plan, some of the things that you want to keep in mind is that you need to list the name and contact information for each of the household members. All right. And what you want to include on that list that you're preparing is, of course, any of the medical needs they have, and you want to have a record of their MSP number. Right? Very important, because after the disaster, the chances are you're able to access any service without it is going to be hard. And if you don't have the number, trying to find it when all the communications are down externally, it's going to make things very difficult. You want to list the contact information of any of the healthcare providers you have, especially your family doctor, if you have one, which is a commodity that's in a very big shortage of everyone. Don't forget to list don't forget to list the name, color, and any identifying marks on any of your family members. And the same thing, this would be, and really what I forgot to put there, this is don't forget any of your pets and make sure you put down their color identifying marks. So I didn't edit this quite too well. Okay, as emergencies can happen during school, one of the things you want to list the contact information for the school on who can pick up the children if required, who they have to contact, and who is the safe person to come if you can't get there. All right, very important. Your children or grandchildren, they should be carrying this in their book bag, and it should just stick there. It should be there, so it's always there, so they know how to get a hold of you or get hold of your emergency contact. You want to have 2 emergency contact numbers to reach. One locally that everyone can reach, and then you need one that's basically more or less probably outside the province if you can, right? Because during a disaster, everyone's going to be on their cell phone trying to talk to each other, but if you try to get a hold, if you have one local, or if you have a contact, all the family members of contact who are outside the province, because they're liable to be able to receive it easier than someone within the province after the disaster. They can pass on any messages, and they're also going to collect any information that comes in and pass on to you when you get a hold of them. So very important. You also need to arrange a couple of contact or areas to meet up. One locally, very close to your home or to the schools, and then one outside the city if you can, right, if need be. Because if they can get out of the city somewhere that's safer, that's where you want to go. If they can't get to the family one that's close by, then you need someplace else that the family members can get to. Okay, some of the documents you need to put in your grab and go kit. This is very important. Now, the grab and go kit is the item or the backpack, whatever you have that's sort of under your bed or in a closet by a door that you can get out. And that's going to have your 72 hours worth of food and water, your medication, and you need all this information. You need birth certificates for everybody in the family, right? Because you need your marriage certificate and divorce papers. Because your copies may be destroyed during the disaster. And then, of course, when you're trying to replace them, especially right after the disaster, it's going to take months, if not years, because everybody else is all going to be chasing down the same thing. If you have it on hand, it's going to save a lot of heartache for yourself. Right? Wills, very important again, because who knows who's going to make it out from the disaster, but you want to have a copy on hand because it may come into play, right? Hopefully it won't, but it may. Insurance papers, very, very important. Because if you have your insurance papers with you, your household insurance or whatever, you're ahead of those people that don't have it, because you're going to be able to go get a hold of your claim agent, say, here we go, here's my policy, and you get a head start on trying to recuperate your losses, start any rebuilding, because you've got your paperwork there. So you're going to be at the head of the line versus those who are going to be scrambling, trying to find it. So it also gives you that opportunity to get a hold of the builders way before the rest of the people, because you're prepared, right? You've got that information on hand. All right, property certificates and land registry. Another thing that's important, you may have to get to the point where you are proving you own this piece of property, right? Very important. This is one of the biggest problems they had in Bosnia during the war, or after the war, is people were squatting on properties and other people were coming back and claiming it, and it took years to verify some of those claims. And in some cases, it meant heartaches for a lot of people who had been squatting someplace for 5 or 10 years during the war and afterwards, refurbished the place, put it together, and then the owner comes back with his papers, and this is my property, get out. Right? So very important to make sure you got that. Passports for identification, driver's license, identification as well. Okay, copy of your medical prescriptions, very important, especially for those of us who are over 50, we're getting into that middle age bracket, so we're not going to remember everything that we take, so it's good to have it on hand, because of course then if you need refills or anything, again, you've got the information on hand, And then hopefully the pharmacist is going to be able to help you, because even if it's not current or you have no refills, they can still help you short term after an emergency. What are some of the other papers you may think you might need? Money, yeah. Yeah, very, very important. But the thing is to remember with it, you want to have small bills and coins, because nobody's going to be able to make change, right? Because you got to imagine power is going to be off, the electronics are down, so things are going to be done in cash. And if you only have 50s and 100s, you're probably not going to get any kind of change for your purchases. So you want a lot of small bills. The suggestion is anywhere from $200 to $500 in your grab and go kit. All right, but just add to it over the time, and then, you know, if you put $20 a week until you get a nice stash. And then not only that, do you want in your grab and go kit, if you have a family size preparedness kit in your garage or shed, you want to put another $500 in there, right? It's just there. And I carry a couple $100. No, I carry about 150 in my car, in my emergency preparedness bag in my car, just so you have the access to be able to purchase things. All right, individual kit. So this is your grab and go kit. This is your individual kit. Every member in the family should have their own. And that's including toddlers, babies, the elderly, the teenagers, right? In those kits, what you want is you want to have some basic first aid and the medications for that person. They all should have their own battery power radio or cranked radio. Okay. Flashlight, a whistle to be able to signal for help, right? Because if you're in a collapsed building or something like that, you're able to find them. They're able to blow the whistle so you can come to them. Or if everything is dark and the kids are scared, you know where to find them, and they can toot the whistle. It gives them something to do, take their mind off until you get to them. But it's good. No, sir, no questions from the peanut gallery. Yes, Colin. Yeah. And most of this stuff is taken from the BC emergency pamphlets. So a lot of it's, most of this information's in there. So if you help yourself, you'll gather, most of it will be there. But again, this will be up on our website, the presentation, so you can get information on that as well. Okay, local maps. All right. The idea is that so everybody knows where the meeting places are. And you want paper maps, because if the GPSs on the phones aren't working, or they can't get their phone to work, especially some of us seniors have a hard time remembering where we're going, but if it's marked on a map, we can follow that fairly easy. The kids can follow it as well. So paper map. Now you want to definitely identify any of your meeting places on it. Cell phone and charges, very big thing. You want to have it, so you can get one of the little small solar chargers that can get thrown in to the grab and go kit. At least a 3-day supply of non-perishable food and water. And as you see when you go around, you can take a look. 72 hours worth of water is very heavy, because you're looking at about 4 liters per day per person. So you're looking at about carrying 12 liters of water, which is very, very heavy. So ideally, to get yourself a little filter, one of the filter straws that they have out or whatever. Just it's great, so you're not carrying all that weight around, but you do want that. And with the perishable food, if it's canned stuff, make sure you got a can opener, that they have a can opener in it. You want a dust mask, since everyone basically has N95s these days. Throw in a couple of them, because you're going to need it. Because if there's, especially an earthquake, there's going to be a lot of dust in the air and everything else. So you want to get that on as quickly as possible to protect your lungs and everything else. Garbage bags, moist towelettes, plastic ties for personal sanitation, right? Got to have somewhere to do it. And as it says, 4 liters water for 3 days, which is quite heavy. Seasonal clothing. Again, this is something important. No sense in having shorts and a t-shirt if we're heading into winter in your grab-and-go kit. So it's something that you sort of have to change around a little bit as required. Cash and small bills. You want to try to have, especially for us on the elderly side, you want to have at least a month's worth of your prescriptions, your medication with you, right? Now, what you can do, because of course, as most of us know, you have a certain amount that you're given your prescription and it's set to do for a number of days. But if you ask your family doctor to write you a prescriptions for a month for your emergency preparedness kit, they're willing to do that. So you can just put that there. And then all you have to do is remember annually, just rotate it with your regular medication. Just rotate it out. All right. Contact lenses, if you wear contact lenses, solution, prescription glasses, you want a spare pair. Even if they're not your current prescription, at least having something to be able to see out of is great. And then you want to get into a bit of your comfort stuff. Put your favorite pocketbook or kid's book in your backpack, because you're going to want something to do to take your mind off what's going on, something to do in the evenings while you're sitting in the group lodging, if that's where you ended up. Something to keep your mind off what's going on. Pencil and paper, comfort food, my favorite. You want something, again, that's going to bring you your stress level down, and there's nothing like junk food to help you there a bit, right? But just something, it does make a big difference, right? It's the same for those of us that were in the military. Whenever we used to go on exercise and you know you're going to be on hard rations, you always brought a bit of stuff to make it more desirable over the long run, right? Personal toiletries, right? Skin lotion if you need it, soap, toothpaste, that kind of stuff. Your healthcare number, an emergency blanket. Those little foil blankets are nice and easy. They fit in there. They don't take up a lot of room, and they work quite well. Or you can buy these, as you'll see back there, you can actually get a little sleeping bag that works about 8 ounces. So it fits in a grab-and-go kit quite nicely. All right. That's about it on the emergency preparedness side. Now, we were talking about grab-and-go kits, right? That's personal stuff. This is something you want to keep in your, as I said, either under your bed or close to a closet. Some of the other items that you want to have under your bed is some closed-toe shoes. Closed-toe shoes, right? Not sandals, not slippers, something a bit more firmer. Because after any kind of disaster, if we're talking about earthquakes, you're going to have all kinds of broken glass all over the place. Your dust mask, a hard hat, safety goggles, and good work gloves, right? Just sit them under your bed. My grandkids have a couple. My wife has a nice pink hard hat I found for her 10 years ago, which is still there. It was one way to get her to wear it. Once you have your personal grab-and-go kits, then what you want to do is sort of broaden out a bit and take a look at preparing for the family. Now, this is stuff that you want to put aside. If you have a garage or a shed, you want it outside of the house where possible. All right? And this is where you're going to build up the bulk of your stuff. This is where you're going to have your extra water containers. This is where you're going to have your food supply to last you 3 to 4 weeks. Because no matter what anybody tells you about the 72-hour, and in my mind, it's 72 hours of preparedness is bullshit. Because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's a start, but the fact is, if you remember back in 2021, how we lost all our access into the province due to the mudslides and floods. It took weeks for the supply system to get back up. There were shortages coming up all over the place. Federal government, chances are, they're not going to get in place here for at least a week to 10 days before they can actually get on the ground and start helping us. It's going to take the merchants and stuff 10 to 15 days to get themselves up and running. So realistically, you want to have stuff on hand that's going to provide for you and your family for at least 4 weeks. Ideally, 4 to 8 weeks if you have the room. And that's why those, 25-year shelf life stuff is great, because once you've done it, it's there until you're dead. Right? Most of us here aren't going to be here for another 25 years. So my grandkids will get it. They can use it for camping. Right? But that's important. You've got to have that. And this is where you're going to have your extra clothing, sleeping bags. If you have camping gear on hand already, you're halfway there, because you have sleeping bags, you have air mattresses, you have a shelter, you probably have a stove of some sort. You're going to probably have a lantern. So you've got all this stuff already. So you're just building your family preparedness kit around that. All right. And it's never too much, right? Because sure as heck, when the disaster happens, you're going to say, shit, I don't have enough, or you're going to run out. So never think you have too much. Just add to it and keep it going. This is where you have games. This is where you're going to have extra books. In my grab and go kit, in my backpack, I have a nice flask of rum. And in the garage, I have a nice bottle of scotch. Again, comfort, something just to help you get through it all, because it's going to be stressful no matter what. No matter how prepared you are, your neighborhood's prepared, the stress is going to be there. So you want something to be able to get your mind off some of this stuff. So whatever helps with. Pardon me?
You leave most of it in the garage?
The family preparedness I do, my wife gets upset because probably 1/3 of our garage, especially the wall space, is all taken up with this stuff. Right? And, I've got a propane heater in there, a couple of stoves, a couple of lanterns. As I say, you never have too much, right? Because sure enough, being prepared is going to make it easier for you, but you're also going to attract attention. This is why leading into Map Your Neighborhood, it's important to have your neighborhood prepared, because then you're all working together and everyone's able to help each other, and they're not going to come knocking on your door to steal your food, right? Because they see you have it. All right. Map Your Neighborhood, as I said earlier on, it was one of the very first things that DEEP became part of. It is a program that was developed by a professor in the University of Washington down in Seattle. And basically, as it talks about the 9 steps that you need to immediately do right after a disaster, how to secure your home, and also the skills. And the second part of the program is when you're making a list of the skills and equipment that your neighbors have. Right, so you have all this information beforehand. Right, the Map Your Neighborhood program is a 90-minute presentation. There's a DVD for you that's used. That facilitator will use. Everyone gets a workbook to work through as they're going through it, and it has a set of short DVD. What's the word I'm looking for? Videos on it. And the way the program is set up, the DVD tells you to do this, when to stop, have discussions, how long your discussion should be, and then get on. So it fits quite nicely into the 90 minutes. During COVID, because of course people couldn't meet, Christian, Colin, and I, we worked on dividing it into 2 Zoom presentations of an hour each. And so it's also online. What's really important is the contact information of the neighbors, the equipment and skills, because it's really great to know who has what skills in your neighborhood and what equipment there is. Who has the generator, who has the chainsaws, that kind of thing. It's very important. Okay, and then the third step of the program is you're going to complete a diagram of your neighborhood. So you're going to list basically all the homes, the house numbers, and who's inside each of those homes. And what you end up doing is you end up with a list of pets, who's vulnerable in the homes, any disabled people that are in the neighborhood, those who have toddlers, anything like that. It's all there. Some of the things they talk about is the importance of knowing how to shut off your gas meter. The propane tank, and still a lot of Americans still use propane for heating a lot of their homes, and so they have the huge propane tank. So it's important for you to know how to be able to turn them off and when to turn them off. Because usually, as you can see here, pretty well after disaster, any of the house fires that are happening is because of the gas leaks and that. So 60% of the fires that happen are because of gas leaks and people not shutting it off. And then once one house, especially in our neighborhood where everything's wood, once one place goes, the chances are you're going to get a whole bunch of them following along. All right. Also on your map, you're going to, as I said, you're going to list who the elderly, disabled, where children may be, and those children are home by themselves after school. This is all information you're gathering. And basically, ideas: check on the neighbors who may be prone to injury or who are injured, so you know who is going to need the help. All right, so the 9 steps that they talk about, right? Very first thing you're going to do after any emergency or disaster is take care of your family, take care of yourselves. Very first thing, right? That's making sure everybody in the house is safe, right? And get them out of the house if you need to. And because you have a plan and it's been practiced, everybody knows what they have to do after a disaster, right? You need to dress for safety. So this is where the hard hat or a bicycle helmet, hard shoes, and that stuff to protect you from any falling debris, because especially an earthquake, there's aftershocks and stuff keeps still falling around. You want good work gloves because you want to protect your hands from any of the sharp objects as you may be trying to dig yourself out of some place or getting in to rescue somebody. So you want to make sure you have good work gloves. You want to be able to you check the natural gas in your home or propane and shut off as necessary. Now, it's important not to just shut it off because it's been an earthquake. Right? Because if your house or home remains usable and livable and you shut off the gas, it may be weeks before you can get someone to come turn it on, right? Because residential homes are low priority for the first responders and for Fortis and that. So if you shut it off, you need to be able to get a license. Gas fitter, yeah, to turn it back on, and that could take weeks. So if you don't smell gas, right, you can't hear it, don't shut it off, right? One of the other things, if you're not 100% sure, take a look at your gas meter. And if the dials are really going quicker than they normally do, shut it off, because that means there's a leak somewhere. And the only way you can tell that is to take the time to look at it in the daylight at some point and see what it moves on your normal usage, right? Just to give you a baseline. If you do smell it or hear it, turn it off because it may save your home. All right? Shut off the water coming into your house, because what's coming off the streets at some point could be contaminated. And you want to save what usable water you have in your home. So everyone should know where the shut off valve in your home is to shut off your water, right? Because, if you have a hot water tank, that's good water. Water in the toilet tank is good in most cases, unless you have some kind of disinfectant in it. And if you have time, fill your sinks and bathtubs right afterwards. And then shut off the water main until you hear otherwise. Because that way then you have a good supply of water on hand. All right? One of the things is that every household should have as well is a help or okay sign. which it comes as part of the Map Your Neighborhood package. And ideally, the reason that if you yourself and your family members don't need help, then you just use a Band-Aid, which you're going to have with your grab-and-go kit, and tack it to the window so your neighbors aren't going to waste time knocking on your door and asking if you're okay. If you need help, you just turn it around, put the help sign on, and then your neighbors know that you need help, and they'll bring the appropriate people to give the hand that you can. Okay, one of the things they talk about in the program is the importance of everybody having a fire extinguisher, right? And ideally, what you want after the disaster, what the program suggests, is that everybody that has one will put it out on the street. So if there is a fire, there's a number of fire extinguishers used to put them out as quickly as possible, right? So ideally, you may have 20 to 30 fire extinguishers on the street, which hopefully put off most of the small fires that may happen and save a lot of the homes, all right? One of the things they talk about in the DVD is how one of the elderly ladies who took it was really happy that she had done her Map Your Neighborhood, and she had convinced all her neighbors to put their fire extinguishers out on the sidewalk and leave them there. And when she called the professor to say this is what she did, she said, well, maybe you might want to call them all and tell them to put them in. It's only after the disaster because overnight they're not going to be there, right? So it's, you know, so they're very important. But it is important to have it because it not only is going to save your home, it could save your neighbors, which indirectly is going to save yours. All right. After you've done those first 6 steps, then they're talking about step 7. And what you're going to do is you're going to have 2 designated places in your neighborhood. One is going to be the neighborhood gathering place. That is where all the neighbors are going to meet, so they can be divided up to do different things as required. And you're also going to have a comfort site. All right. This is where your neighbors are going to take the elderly, the children, and all that to one home where they'll be looked after. So the rest of the neighborhood can do the things that need to be done. So these are 2 things when you have your Map Your Neighborhood meeting is that you're going to designate, and hopefully people will volunteer, you know, for their home to be used as the comfort station and someplace for a gathering place. Once everybody is together, then the lead of the neighborhood will start dividing up the neighbors into teams. Ideally, team 1 will get on to the AM/FM radio that somebody has so they can listen to the news reports, try to figure out what's going on. And also a weather station to try to find out what's going to be coming down the pipeline, so they know what's going on. You'll have a second team which will start checking on neighbors. Team 2, the first couple of people will start checking on the elderly neighbors or those who are vulnerable, right? That's going to be your priority. It's getting them to the comfort station so you know they're taken care of and you can continue with what you need to do. Team 3 will go around and check all the gas meters. So again, this is part of, after you've done your Map Your Neighborhood program, done your neighborhood, what you want to do at some point is get everybody together in the daylight and walk the neighborhood looking for hazards and figuring out where all the gas meters are. So everybody's familiar. When you draw up your maps, you want to update them so you can identify hazards or where the gas meters are in each of the homes. So the team, as they're going out, they know exactly where they're going. And if they hear or smell gas, they're going to shut it off. All right, team 4, if you have enough of your neighbors, get out. Then they're going to wander around and start helping any of the families that have the help sign up. All right. They got to be able to give some basic first aid, comfort them, and try to get them to the comfort station where possible. So everybody is in one place. So you're limiting trying to keep your resources well used, but not over too much. And if you have all your vulnerable elderly children all in one place, 1 or 2 people can look at them versus having 8 or 9 or 10 people having to try to take care of people in their own homes where possible. So you want to try to get them to that comfort station. All right, after everybody has done their work, then everyone comes back to the gathering place and then figure out what your next stage, what you're going to do, which will probably start setting up shelters where you need, figuring out which homes are usable, right? So people can share their homes with the neighbors, start doing some community cooking, right? Share your food, that kind of stuff. Solves a lot of problems that way. All right, selecting a gathering site. You want to have one thing, preferably in the middle of your neighborhood if possible, or one of the ends, but someplace that's easy, recognizable, that people can find. It's got to be visible, open garage, carport, porch, whatever, that people know, but just so everyone knows where it is. And you want to make sure, of course, that it's not going to be impacted by down-powered lines or damaged structures. Care center. Again, it's somebody offering up their home. Ideally, especially because you're dealing with elderly and vulnerable, disabled, you want hopefully somebody has a ground level entrance into their home so that you're not having a lot of stairs to deal with. So these are things that you need to consider when you're putting your plan together for your neighborhood. Okay, neighborhood skills and equipment. All right. Some of the skills that you want to try to verify and know, which are important for you. Who has first aid? Who has childcare experience, right? Who works with the elderly? Who has search and rescue training, all right? Do you have anybody that has crisis counseling skills? Because everyone's going to need some comforting and counseling afterwards. Trades, very important, right? Plumbers, pipe fitters, carpenters, electricians, all these things, because these are guys that are able to, these are people, not guys, people who are able to help get the neighborhood back up where required. Not only that, when you have a problem in your home, you know who to phone rather than phoning some electrician at $100 an hour. You can go to your neighbor and say, I got a little problem. Can you come help me out? Okay. Firefighting skills. Again, everyone should know how to use a fire extinguisher properly, right? And if you have to use a hose, to fight it, what do you do? Military and service skills. Very important. First responders have a lot of knowledge and background. The military has a good solid grounding in a lot of these things. First aid, firefighting, search and rescue. They're all in there. Okay? Ham radio operator, very important because they're able to connect yourselves with the outside world, whether it's outside your neighborhood, the city, or whatever. This is one of the things we have just completed within DEEP. We now have 3, I think, ham operators now. Yeah, 3 qualified, 2 of us who have all the skills, but don't have the license. All right. Someone with language skills, right? Because most neighborhoods, you have 2 or 3 different languages. So again, if you know beforehand, if it's required, like someone's elderly mother who only speaks Mandarin and their daughter or son are at work, how are you going to be able to? So you might want to find out if anyone in the neighborhood speaks the same language, or you can prepare some signs ahead of time that you as a rescuer can take to say, calm down, I'm here to help you, that kind of thing in the various languages. Coordinating and organizing skills, very important, because you need someone to organize the group, coordinate what's going on, and be able to do that level-headedly, right? So you want to figure out who that's going to be, because it's no good if everybody's running around doing their own thing and they're stepping on everybody's toes and they're duplicating the work that's being done versus being a nice coordinated effort of what's going on. And any other skills that you may decide when you're doing your presentation and the group decides that there's other things that may be required. All right. Okay, some of the equipment, right? Who has first aid supplies? And this is other than just your little first aid kit, right? This is important. So you need to have a few other things on hand. You need extra triangular bandage. You need burn dressings on hand. You need dressings, gauzes, right? You need a CPR mask. You may be required. So you want to have a bulk out your first aid kit a bit more, because it's not just be yourself you're dealing with. You may be dealing with your neighbors, right, that need it. I have 2 Kendra extraction devices, so I can, with some other help, I can get somebody out of a collapsed building if I need to, right? I can transport, we can transport people on that if you don't have stretchers, right, to get them to where you need to go. So these are some of the things that you want to add. Again, who has tents and camping gear? Because again, all the homes in the neighborhood may not be safe to use, so you got to have places for people to go, right? Excuse me. Spare bedding, right? Who has spare beds in their home? So because you may want to be able to put people in there. Who has chainsaws? Who has step ladders and extension ladders? Who has a generator? That's going to be the guy that's going to be most important, because he's going to be able to power a fridge or a freezer so people can put their perishables there within the neighborhood. It also is going to allow everyone to charge their cell phones so they can play their favorite games as they're sitting there in the dark at night. Okay, fire extinguishers, right? Who has them? What size? How many? Very important. Rope, because you may need it to put up tarps. You may need it to drag trees out of the way, or limbs, or whatever. Ladders, ham radios, walkie-talkies, hand tools, power tools. The walkie-talkies are good, especially for the Map Your Neighborhood, because as you send out your teams, they're able to talk back to the base, your gathering spot. They're able to talk to it. What we're working on is that as neighbors, as at least our core members, once they get their Map Your Neighborhood up and running, we are providing them with a handheld ham radio with some basic instructions to be able to contact the disaster support hub where our base station will be, and also that the walkie-talkies are able to talk to their neighborhood ham station and be able to get information to the support hub. Right now, we basically have 4 corners of the Dunbar community covered with handheld radios and our base station. But ideally, we get more people involved, get more neighborhoods on our Map Your Neighborhood program, the more information we're able to gather. And ideally, with all this information, what it does is allow us, as the one functioning disaster support hub in the city, is we're able to report up to the Emergency Operations Center what our requirements in the neighborhood are, what we see, like what roads are shut down. It helps them do planning, all right? Even though if any of you have been on the city website, under their emergency preparedness, you will see there's 24 disaster support hubs in the city. What they don't tell you is that 23 of those are just assigned by the community center. We actually have the only functioning one. Ours is a bit of a Cadillac because we had good support from the association here at one point. We have a 20-foot sea container. We have a solar panel to power our radios, our lights, and we're able to operate day or night if need be, 24/7 if need be, because of the stuff we have in there.
Where do you have this stuff?
Pardon me?
Where do you have this stuff?
Our support hub is right behind the tennis courts. It's right in this. All the 24 disaster support hub signs are at a community center.
Is that different than the disaster staging areas?
Yes. There are 6 disaster staging areas in the city, and ideally, if the plan is working right, 4 of the support hubs, disaster support hubs, will report to a staging area, right? And then basically what those staging areas do is they correlate the information from the support hubs and they send it up to the Emergency Operations Center. So versus someone trying to get a hold of the emergency operations center to pass on, oh, my house is burning down, or phoning 911, the 6 staging areas are correlating and compiling the information and saying, okay, well, we have a whole block in Dunbar that's burning down. And we know 16th and Dunbar itself is all shut down because of trees and collapsed buildings. It again allows them to paint a picture, send it up to the EOC so they can do their planning as well. All right. The staging areas are kind of iffy right now because the city's kind of redesignating who's responsible for them. And because there's not, and because the state or disaster support hubs aren't up and running as well, or there aren't groups that are doing it, there's no one really to report to them. And right now, the only clear fact on the staging areas is that Vector will send people to man the radios and communications. The fire department are supposed to have 2 members that report to each of the staging areas as well. And there's supposed to be some city workers who are trained to work in there, but that's up in the air right now. And before, and I know where some of this is coming from, is the NEAT team that worked with Vancouver Fire, which is the Neighborhood Emergency Assistant Team. They would send some of their trained members as well to the staging areas to do tasks as required within those neighborhoods. But NEAT is on a holding pattern over the last 4 years, and we're hoping to get it up again. And we're meeting with Vancouver Fire and a couple of the deputy chiefs next week and see if they are coming to the table with stuff we need. One which was a budget and a mandate is something that NEAT never had. And the second one is access to the list of members who have taken the training so we know who to bring back in if we get it up and running. So we've been butting heads with them for 6 months over this. Hopefully, because the fire chief now is involved, she's given direction that we're supposed to get the help we need to get started, and we shall see. Because there's a lot of NEAT members out there, whether they're still in Vector, emergency support services, who are always willing to come back, and they have all these skills. In the 10 years or 7 years that the NEAT program was up, they put over 350 people through the program, and they have the search and rescue skills. They have enhanced first aid. They have firefighting, hose management, this kind of stuff. So very, very highly qualified volunteers, which the city just shelved. Pardon me? The staging areas,
We're not supposed to say it, actually.
there's one at Marpole. There's one at Kitsilano Community Center. They just moved one, so I'm not sure.
We're not supposed to, the public's not supposed to go there. So.
No. But
Well, who is meant to go?
Just people that are trained to use it, because we don't want public going there, because it's going to overwhelm us. It's going to overwhelm us. We want people that are just trained. We don't have enough resources for the public to go there. There's community centers for people to go there.
Well, how do we know where we're supposed to go?
okay, this is where the whole plan comes in, right? If your neighborhood is sorted out, once that's done, then those who are able to will come to, in our community, they're going to come to our support hub. They're going to come to Dunbar. All right. We're going to take all the information that you bring to us and we're going to send it up the line. As well as at the support hub, that is where you're going to be able to find out what's going on. Because hopefully we'll have some updates coming in from the city and the province. This is what's going on. Which routes are shut down. Also, part of what the support hub does as well is we take information that comes into us. So if you come in and you have a bunch of equipment that you can lend out, we're going to post it on one of our notice boards. If you are coming to report that you need help with something, we're going to post it on one of the notice boards and try to put those two together. So if your dog's or cat's gone missing after the thing, we can put it up there, and as people come in, they're going to be able to take a look, help you out. If you need a chainsaw to get rid of some of the trees out of your property so you can get your car out, hopefully someone is going to come by and say they have a chainsaw. So part of what the support hub does is correlate that kind of information. The staging areas are only basically there to gather information that are coming in from the support hubs, ideally. They're not there to provide direct support to the neighbors, to the neighborhood. It's the same as our support hub. We don't provide water or food. We don't have that capability. We're there basically for information sharing. And the idea, the more information you can get up to the planners, they're able to draw the big picture and decide where they're going to send their limited resources. The scary part is because we have no critical infrastructure in Dunbar, we're going to be way down on the list as far as seeing any of the first responders. That is the fact of life, right? Because the first responders are going to deal with the critical infrastructure, getting them up, getting them running, so they can provide the support the rest of us are going to need. All right. All right. Someone just asked, what do you mean by critical infrastructure? We have no hospitals, right, in our neighborhood. We have no hospitals. We do have a big hydro facility, but technically that's not in our community. That's not within the boundaries of the community, right? We have no bridges, right, in our community. So it's that kind of stuff takes priority. Getting the hospitals up, getting City Hall up, right, to provide the help they can, getting help to make sure that the supply lines are up so that it's clearing the roads, the major arteries, that kind of thing. That's what they're considering critical infrastructure. Okay, when you're drawing your map in your guide, right, as I say, you're going to basically decide in your meeting what your neighborhood's going to consist of. Mine is the north-south west 19th between Highbury and Wallace. That's my neighborhood. Colin he's on Collingwood, but he goes from to Blenheim and along the alley. So it depends as what you decide when your group gets together, what you're going to decide is your neighborhood, right? Ideally, you're looking at between 20 and 30 homes, right? Because that's manageable. And as I said before,
When might there be a meeting of your group?
depends on the group. Whenever you decide to put one together.
No, but the fellow who's looking after it, like yourself, in your area, when you get your residents together?
Yeah, we do a block party where possible, once a year.
We don't have anything in our area.
And you have to do something.
Why are some areas that have a volunteer that'll do it?
That's the whole thing. You have to decide.
People don't even know that map area exists, right?
Yeah.
It came out with you guys a number of years ago, and then it sort of petered off, but some people have a recollection.
Yeah.
Some have done it, but now the people in the homes have changed so much that it's outdated.
Yeah. So what Penn was saying is that, I mean, basically over the 10 years, 13 years, or 12 years now, the Deep's been going, they have probably done over the years, probably 25 to 30 of the neighborhoods, which is not that large amount considering this, the number of neighborhoods there are. Part of the problem is that nobody wants to take the bull by the horns and start it up. The Map Your Neighborhood program is simple. It even comes with an introduction sheet that you give to all your neighbors saying, this is what you're planning to do. Would you come to a meeting? Right? There are people in this room who belong to Deep who took 12 years to do theirs.
Not me. He's looking at you.
But that's the thing, though. If you're waiting for somebody else to do it, it's not going to get done. And when I did my first one in my neighborhood, I had 5 of the households out of 30. I did a second one, I got another 6. Did a third one, I got 4. But you just sort of keep at it. And what it does is, you bring in 4 or 5 of your neighbors into your home. and you just expand it. And what we did our first one, of course, with the 6 of couples that were there, we were able to compile a list of the whole neighborhood who was there, and we volunteered them for different things because they weren't there. And then when we go knock on the door, I said, oh, by the way, we know you have a stepladder, so we put you down for this. We know you're a doctor. So guess what? But again, somebody has to take it because nobody's going to do it for you. You know, if you are interested in doing one for your neighborhood, let us know. We'll provide a facilitator for your first meeting. We'll give you the information to go around and help, but it's up to you as in your neighborhood to do it. We'll provide the support where we can, but we're not going to do the door-to-door stuff. Deep does not have the people to do that, right? We can provide facilitators for you for your first one and help you through it and get it going. But it's got to be community-led. It's got to be neighborhood-led, right? That's the whole point. And when you do it, you want to do it in one of the homes, your homes. They don't want you doing it in the community center or a church because it's not your neighbors. It's not your neighborhood, right? The idea is to get to know each other. And having an annual block party is a great way to bring them all together and do a refresher, update your book with any new information in that, right? People have moved out, new people in, you need to bring them into the fold. And we're willing, if you do have a block party, let us know. We're willing to bring a bunch of our pamphlets, a couple signs, and, you know, spend half an hour with your neighbors talking about what Map Your Neighborhood, the support hub, what we do, right? So we're willing to do that kind of stuff, but we can't do neighborhood by neighborhood by neighborhood. We just don't have the manpower.
How do you see apartment buildings fitting into this scheme?
Pardon me?
How do you see apartment buildings?
Okay, apartment buildings. There's a little book on that, but basically what you're doing is just using the building as your neighborhood, whether you do floor by floor. And ideally, again, you're going to, some of it's going to be a little different, but one of the apartments you want to define as your comfort station. You want to design a gathering place outside of the building to start with, and then you work from there. If it's a huge complex where you have 8 to 10 apartments per floor, well, then you might want to have sort of one coordinator per floor, right? And then they all get together. But the one of the pamphlets back there does talk about trying to build this up within the condos and apartments. And all you're doing is sort of, rather than going horizontal with your planning, you're going vertical. Right? But again, it's just a matter of deciding to do it, knock on a couple of the doors of people that you do know in the building and invite them in and take it from there. And ideally, if you're in a strata, you want to get the strata council on board, because that's when you need them to provide some space for you to store some of the supplies the building's going to need. You want to get the building manager on so he can show you where the shutoffs are, that there's a couple in the building that know where the gas shutoff is and your water shutoff is. And this is where some of the property managers said, no, that's a safety issue. But again, BC, the Emergency Management Ministry is trying to change that a bit, because these are important things, because there's no sense in getting everybody out of the building stands, but there's a gas leak and a spark happens and the whole building goes up, but it survived the earthquake, right? But again, so all you're doing is taking it and going vertical versus horizontal in your neighborhood.
Does anybody from Deep do individual presentations at a complex?
Just talk to us. We try to do what we can. Now, before we go, one of the other things that are just happening within Dunbar, which is being supported by the DRA and Kit's Neighborhood House, is a pilot program. And what they're calling it is Emergency Preparedness and Response. And what they're doing is they're looking for volunteers for what they're calling block connectors. And the block connectors are going to do basically sort of the same thing that the Map Your Neighborhood program is going to do. Right? So they're going to look for volunteers that are going to go door to door within the 2 test areas, which one is in Dunbar, that they're doing right now is between Dunbar and Highbury, and between 27th or 28th and 25th. So they're doing a small area to start with. And again, the idea is they're checking out the vulnerable, the elderly, this is disabled, trying to coordinate, getting information. And ideally, the block connector is going to be able to help out with this kind of stuff. Ideally, these volunteers are going to be able to help do transportation before or after disaster, help them get the signed up members, help them sort out medication, this kind of stuff. So it's just in the pilot project, or they started this summer a little bit. They're going to be doing some volunteer training at Kit's House starting in February. And then hopefully come the summer, they're going to be able to get it out. Ideally, the second part of it is just not doing the contact to the individuals and households and apartments and things like that, but it's also to get the merchants on board. Like, will the pharmacy be able to dispense medication without people being able to pay for it right then? Will Strong's as a grocery store be able to let people run up a tab because they've got to imprint their credit card at one point, but they can't access that right now. So that's part of what the block connector program is working on. So ideally, this is supported by the West Side Seniors Hub Council, along with Kids Neighborhood House to get it up, with a grant from the United Way. And ideally, we're seeking funding to hire a full-time person to manage this in the 2 test areas and to build it up. So again, that's sort of, it goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do here as well. So they're meshing. Deep had a lot of input into this. I've been to a number of their meetings on the planning, especially on the emergency responder, emergency preparedness end of it, putting it together. So it should, if it works, it's going to be a great program. Yes.
There's nothing like emergency support services or anything?
The ESS, there is, but really what their focus is really the heart of their program is their DAT team, which is the disaster assistance team. These are the people that show up at a fire, and they're the ones who provide the vouchers for hotel rooms and meals for the 72 hours, right, or further. The DAT team, if you remember that fire on West 10th that destroyed the 2 apartment buildings, DAT team was in place, and they were almost 6 weeks in there providing support. All right. Right afterwards, there was 12 hours a day. They had members at a meeting place. Near the end, there were 4-hour shifts, and they still have someone who's a main contact. Their other main thing is what ESS does is that after a disaster, if required, they're going to set up the reception center where people come in to get look for the help they need, where to go, and to register for it, right? And this is what provides the vouchers for people for accommodation, for meals, as well if there's a need for clothing, because everybody's lost clothing. They can make arrangements to get some clothing, toiletries, that kind of stuff. The other thing they're responsible for is that if they have to, they'll set up what's known as group lodging. This is where you and 900 of your new best friends are all sleeping under the same roof somewhere on a cot, hopefully, if you're lucky. And that's sort of what they're responsible for, right?
John, can I have a minute? I just want to show everybody online and in here a couple of resources that might be handy if you feel a little overwhelmed at what you've seen tonight. So if you go to dunbaremergency.com, tonight's presentation is going to be on there. But I just want to, oh, hold on, Dunbar. Why can't I get there?
Okay. While Christian is sorting out, one of
Yeah.
the things, if you want, if you look online, you will find the videos for Map Your Neighborhood, as well as the booklet, to give you a good sense of what there is. We also have various
that's
other
it.
resorts and past presentations.
So yes, here's our website. Previous events, if you click on events, you'll see all our previous events and you can watch them. So you just click on one of them and you can watch the event that we had before. So tonight's will be up. And if you go to tonight's entry, you'll also see all the slides. So if you go here and click on that, you can see a copy of all the slides that we had on tonight.
Is this time sensitive or can it be given?
It'll
Pardon me?
be,
So is this presentation on here time sensitive?
No,
no, it'll stay up on our site.
yeah, it stays up. And if you do get on there, there's two excellent presentations on there that happened this fall. One was from Burnaby Urban Search and Rescue, right? They were the one team from Canada that went to Turkey. They were there within 48 hours of the earthquake. So they did a great presentation for us. And then the one last month was Carlos Ventura, who's a member of our group, who's also one of the leading experts on earthquakes within the world. And he's a professor at UBC. He did, this is Carlos here, he took this team here of international people to Turkey in May, 4 months after the fact, to see what was going on and try to come up with ideas to bring back, what some of the problems were, what caused the devastation the way it was. And some of it was very shoddy workmanship on a lot of buildings. One of the other things that came out of that whole thing was that if it was a government building, they stuck to the codes because they were being closely supervised. So most of the government buildings survived. Most of the other ones didn't, because even though Turkey has a thing that all building sites need to be inspected by a neutral party, what they have done there is that this third party or neutral party is usually part of the same company that built the building in the first place. One of the things Carlos said, that some of the places they were at, you could just take the concrete and just crumble it in your hands.
No rebar.
No rebar, this kind of stuff. So a lot of lessons learned, but very insightful, those two.
So one other thing on our site, if you go to Map Your Neighborhood, you'll see we have all the Map Your Neighborhood resources here. So all the YouTube videos, if you watch these, it'll guide you through the whole process of what to do. And up at the top, there's a button where you can download the Map Your Neighborhood booklet. And this is the OK and the help sign that John was mentioning before, as well as a guide on everything you need to do when you host your neighborhood event, including lists and checklists and a way to map your street. It's all on this guide, which is in the Map Your Neighborhood section on our website. And we also have a mailing list. You're probably here because you heard about this event through the mailing list, but if you want to share this with your neighbors, so they find out when we have events, the mailing list button is at the top. So we have our events, we have Map Your Neighborhood, we have join our mailing list. And I'll hand it back to you.
Okay. All right. So, yes, Chris.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, the issue of security. You mentioned like not to be advertising stuff people might come and steal. Sorry. So in other disasters that have gone on in other places like New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, basically it became like it became the homicide capital of the States for a couple of years afterwards. And other places, security kind of goes downhill, especially after a few weeks of no kind of civilization happening. Have you got any advice on firearms? Well, it is something to think about.
Baseball bats, pellet guns.
I know it's Canada, but
this is where one of the things that I feel with, if you're prepared as a neighborhood or a community, a lot of this stuff's not going to happen because it's just not you against the world. It's maybe 20 of you and your neighbors against whoever's trying to do whatever, right? So even though I was in the Army Reserve for 43 years, I'm not a big gun pone, but I have a pellet pistol. You know, it'll hurt enough if need be. But the best security is being prepared and having a group of you prepared. And that's why you didn't hear a lot of this stuff out of Christchurch happening, was basically because a lot of those neighborhoods were pre-prepared beforehand and they were watching each other's backs. And the fact is, if you have a whole community that's all prepared, they're not going to be trying to steal from their neighbors because they're prepared and they're going to watch out for strangers in the neighborhood. All right, we're almost running out of time. So what I'm going to do is just go back and just show you a couple of the grab and go kits that are there to give you an idea, and especially those who aren't here. We've got about 10 minutes and then we have to be out of here by 8:30. All right. Okay. So what this is here is, this stuff here is one of the one-person grab and go kits that you could buy that BCA used to have. They don't do it anymore, but they do. If you are a member of BCAA, if you go to FAST, F-A-S-T, they provide a 20% discount as a BCA member on their grab and go kits. So they have 1 person, 2 person, and 4 person there. This little thing here is called a child's comfort kit, right? And it's geared, right? It's a backpack. It comes, I had to throw out the snack bars and fruit bars because they were past dated, but cuddly toy for the kid, coloring book, glow stick, some water, some hard rations, poncho, little first aid kit, flashlight, water bottle, toothpaste, toothbrush, that kind of thing, right? And again, that's something that the child can just keep under their bed. This here is a one-person 72-hour kit again, but this one comes with a, this is your sleeping bag, right? Poncho and a tube tent. 2 people can get in there. It came with this kit. St. John's used to sell these. A lot of the emergency preparedness places do too, right? Hand crank radio, folding shovel for various different things. This one comes with a tarp, pocket knife, plastic bags, right? Glow sticks. These are some of the type of rations. These are the military rations. Not too bad. They're just sort of heat up, but they only have about a 2-year shelf life, but they're not bad. These here, these freeze-dried ones, 25-year shelf life. A bucket of 20 meals was $150, right? But these are good for 25 years. These, pretty well any of them, 72 hours, fast. They all sort of carry various different options of this. You can get one that's 3 different, there's a variety of the entrees, but you can get one that has breakfast, lunch, and dinners in it. You can get a bucket that's strictly breakfast, and then you get one that's lunch and things. So, I mean, some of the things in here is like your pasta primavera, cheese and broccoli, stroganoff, right? Had some canned tuna or chili, which I really like. These buckets can be used for water, sanitation, right? You put a plastic bag inside them, you got a lid, and they work. This here is Chris's, get a bit of his hunting gear, but it's his base for his grab and go. And so you can see what, he's added. He has a little stove. He's got his little pot set, knives, gloves, rope, mesh, fuel, flashlight.
Then carabiners and pulleys. This helps you for moving stuff. You can use the mechanical advantage with rope to be moving things out of the way, and also for suspending things from. Oh, here's one of the, I think, a pretty good water filter system. It's called a platypus. You pour dirty water into this bag, and clean water ends up going into that bag at a rate of about 4 liters in about 3 minutes. So you can get a lot of clean water really, really quickly with this.
Yeah, Life Straw has sort of the same thing as well as the little individuals. So yeah, lots of different water filters. You don't need a huge thing. And then over here are a couple of kits from SOS. And a lot of them are all generic, right? They're sort of all generic. Your water supply, as you can see, if you feel this, that's just sort of a day's worth, and that's quite heavy. You get your hard rations, your Mayday. Each square is about 360. No, it's close to 1,000 calories, and there's enough here for 3 days. A square tastes like sawdust, but it does the job. Right? Again, crank radio, signal mirror, whistles, first aid kit. This is Jane's own. She's added a couple of water bags, plastic bag, first aid kit, pocket knife, duct tape, toilet paper, all these kind of things. All right. Any quick questions?
Expired food that you bought, I've been told, keep it anyways, because if you don't have anything, expired food that you've got in reserve for an emergency that expires, because some are like 2 years or less, they say keep it anyways, because it's better to have something than nothing.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do it with canned goods because you're just not quite
Well,
sure.
you look at the